Manchester United have just beaten Everton 2-0. Kay Murray and Shaka Hislop here with you on ESPN FC. Let's look back on the game then, Shaka, because it was two first-half penalties for Manchester United scored by Bruno and Marcus Rashford that sealed the deal for them in the end, and they've bounced back after that Derby Day defeat to City.
Yeah, listen, Manchester United had to have a response, and they got it. There were two clear penalties. Actually, could have had a third, albeit a shot on Tarkowski just before Garnacho won the second penalty. That and an outstanding save by Jordan Pickford from a Bruno Fernandez free kick, and Manchester United just won this game in the first half. Fairly iffy start for them, but I thought once they found their rhythm, and Manchester United have we've been asking Manchester United to kind of show and establish who they are. They're a counter-attacking team. You saw that. Saying that, at no point did I think Everton adjusted to what was bringing so much joy for Manchester United. I know that it was those long searching balls out to the back, and as a result, it looked and felt kind of easy for Manchester United.
Who stood out to you today for Manchester United?
Well, of course, you've got to give Garnacho his flowers here. I thought his directness at running at Everton's defence, otherwise rather selfish defence, it was the difference between the two. And then after that, Bruno Fernandez was, as you would expect him to be, took his penalty well. Again, kind of leading from the front, more times than not, kind of. He's front and center when it comes to making appeals to the referee. We've kind of gotten used to that. And then I have to give credit to Onana, who I think handled everything wonderfully well. I think he's really settled into what's being asked of him or what's being expected of him as a Manchester United goalkeeper, and coped with everything that Everton had to throw at him on the day.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought Onana up, actually, Shaka, because I was going to ask you about him. Obviously, he had a bit of a rough start to life at Manchester United. What does it say about his character to be able to put those early days behind him?
Well, there was no question that he'd ever lacked any self-belief, and you heard that in his press conferences and speaking about his own uncertain starts, which he acknowledged. Now, from the get-go, I said it looked to me like Andrew Onana had been told by Ten Hag that what was needed was leadership at the back, and they needed his voice and his understanding of the game to marshal a back four. And I thought, while he did that, he lost focus on what was needed of him. And I thought in this game, and especially as the game went on, and Everton's own aerial kind of threats kind of came to the fore, and you recognize the only way that Everton was going to get any joy and service into Calvert-Lewin. He just commanded his box, at the very least, his 6-yard box, wonderfully well. I thought took every cross that you would expect him to, look comfortable in his handling, look brave when having to go at the feet of attackers. And this is all anybody was asking of him. Just focus on your game, focus on what you do well. Once you establish that grounding, then you can start to figure out the role you play with everybody else. Right now, he's gotten back to being a wonderful goalkeeper, which I never, and certainly Andrew Onana never doubted that he was.
When we talk about leadership, I do want to go back to Bruno, because obviously it was Marcus Rashford who took the second penalty. It's something similar to what we saw in the reverse fixture against Everton, when Bruno let Marcus Rashford take the penalty back then. And he said back then he felt that he needed the confidence boost. Do you think it's a similar situation here?
No, I don't. I don't think Marcus Rashford needs a confidence boost this time around. And I just wondered, I mean, I have to admit, once I saw Marcus Rashford step up for that second penalty, it kind of surprised me. But then, if you remember, Jordan Pickford got really close to Bruno Fernandez's first. So I just wonder if that played as much a part as anything. And of course, we're speaking now, Kay, before anybody has come to camera to try to explain it. But for me, I just thought it was an interesting tactic. When you have more than one penalty in a game, it really becomes a mind game between penalty taker and goalkeeper. And as I will freely admit, in penalty circumstances, the goalkeepers are hiding to nothing. So having to play those mind games again leans into to benefiting the goalkeeper all that little bit more. So as a tactic to change penalty taker, I have no problem with. I actually applaud, especially if you have two penalty takers with the records that Bruno Fernandez and Marcus Rashford does. And again, going back to the first penalty where when it was struck, I thought Pickford was getting it. Again, I kind of understand the decision to go to Marcus Rashford the second, if that was the thinking behind it.
Overall, Shaka, what's your stance on Bruno Fernandez in this team, on and off the pitch?
I think he's a good player in a not so good team, in a below average Manchester United, in all honesty. When as important as Bruno Fernandes is to Manchester United, this version of Manchester United, I don't think he's a standout in any of the Manchester United teams that I remember. And that's a testament, not to Bruno Fernandes, but to Manchester United as a team. It's a team that's desperately lacking in leadership. And while, again, I don't think Bruno Fernandes is anything like the leader that Roy Keane was, for argument's sake, he is as close as this version of Manchester United can offer in terms of being a leader. For me, he spends too much time kind of in and around the referee and remonstrating, even when it's not at all needed, and that just detracts from what I think is well, his supposed authority.
What does Ten Hag take away from this win today then?
3 points. That's it. We know exactly what Ten Hag will say, that this team is great, that they're doing everything that's asked of them, that they're trending in the right direction. I mean, he says that whether they win, they lose, or they draw. So that's going to be absolutely no different. Ten Hag has got, well, now 10 games to save his career. I think it's an uphill battle for him. So every win kind of helps that cause. Every win, regardless of the manner. And again, I think Everton played a huge part in this, but at least Manchester United, you kind of saw what they were trying to do in releasing Rashford, and in particular Garnacho, and Garnacho running at this Everton defence.
So let's talk about the table then, because Manchester United, with that, have closed the gap on Spurs to 3 points, but they've played 2 more games. Spurs will be away to Villa tomorrow. So obviously, Manchester United are going to be taking a look at what's going on in that game, Shaka.
Yeah, and right now, I guess Manchester United fans are thinking of, if not dreaming of a top 4 finish. I'll be honest, again, and maybe this is just me kind of harking back to the Manchester Uniteds of old. Does fifth really kind of address any uncertainties around Manchester United and their fans? Is that where your bar now is, that you're aiming to finish fifth and celebrating that? I already have an issue with the old Arsene Wenger quote of top 4 is a trophy. I find that certainly in terms of big clubs who have huge ambitions, I find that to be so diminishing. But maybe that's where Manchester United are, that they're aiming for a top 4 finish. Again, I'm not sure that fifth appeases them at all. Right now, Manchester United are sitting 8 points behind Aston Villa. If I'm a Manchester United fan, albeit with just 10 games to go, I'm looking at Villa's remaining fixtures, and they play all of the top 3. That's 9 points right there. So now I'm thinking, well, if we expect the top 3 to beat Villa as we're hoping, fate is in our own hands. And you make what you like. You make what you like of that. That's if I were a Manchester United fan. As neutral as I am, I'm not a betting man, but if I had to, I still don't see Manchester United finishing top 4. And I'll be honest, I still don't see Manchester United finishing in the top 5. I think right where they are now is where they will be come May.
Let's talk about where Everton might finish, because they remain 5 points clear of the bottom 3 after this result today. We did see once again, and you've mentioned it, the struggles just to finish. It's not helping their plate at the moment, but do you think they will survive this season, Shaka?
I think they will, and of course they've got this another hearing about financial viability or sustainability, whatever it's called. I would hate to see a club punished twice in the same season for two infractions over two different seasons. But that's just me sitting on the sideline. These decisions aren't mine to make, and I understand and hear all of the counter arguments, especially from those clubs who were relegated. That being said, let's freely assume that there will be no further points deductions this season, or no further hearings this season, whichever way. I think Everton have enough to survive, and I thought Everton. I remember when they were first deducted 10 points, reduced to 6 on appeal. I thought this was the perfect season for it. That Manchester United were comfortably, Everton were comfortably 10 points better than certainly the promoted 3. But now all of a sudden, since that points deduction, and every single drop point just seems to weigh so heavily on you, I don't think they've regained that I'll say early season or maybe even pre-point deductions form, and they just can't seem to pull away in a way that I fully expected them to. That being said, to your question, Kay, I do expect them to survive, but it's proving to be far more difficult than I anticipated 3 or 4 months ago.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult for Everton, but as it stands right now, they are outside of the bottom 3, and Manchester United are still outside of the bottom 4 looking up. But a win today is definitely something to make Eric Ten Hag happy.